Good afternoon, dear students. I, Professor Sonal Agrawal, welcome you all in SY BCom Semester 3. Learning is a continuous process. We should never stop learning. But at the same time, no learning can take place without self-learning. Please mind well this sentence. I'm repeating again. No learning can take place without self-learning. So self-learning is very important part in our life. So keeping in mind the situation of nowadays, we switch over to the e-learning instead of the face-to-face learning. This is our first lecture for the subject Banking Law and Practice Paper 2. Just I am trying to make your concept clear about the subject selection, that if you have chosen banking as your specialized subject, please focus here. If you have chosen banking as your specialized subject, then only this is your subject. Then only you have to read banking law and practice paper 2. Otherwise, not. If you have chosen banking as a subsidiary subject only, then you have to learn the banking law and practice paper 1 only, not the paper 2. Clear? So this is the subject for those students who have chosen banking as a specialized subject. I hope it is clear. Okay, this is the first lecture and just focus on our the syllabus. This is the introduction lecture. This syllabus is in force from the June 2015-16, and this syllabus is also available in BNSU website. You can download it also. But please focus here in this PDF. You may also find the syllabus for banking law and practice paper 1, but that syllabus is the old one. Huh? Please don't follow the syllabus of this PDF for banking law and practice paper 1. Download this PDF and follow the syllabus for banking law and practice for paper 2 only. Okay. Now as you can see, there are 4 units in your syllabus. First unit is employments of banks fund. The weightage of this unit is 30%. The second unit is the creation of charges and the weightage is 20%. Third unit is secured and unsecured advances and the weightage is 30%. The fourth unit is guarantees and the weightage is 20%. So you can see two chapters carried the weightage of 30% and two chapters carried the weightage of 20%. Only 4 chapters are there. So starting with the unit number 1, employment of banks funds. The definition of bank says that bank is an organization or the institution who accept the deposit from the public for the purpose of lending or investing, which is repayable on demand or otherwise via check, draft, order, etc. So what I am repeating this definition? This is not the part of your syllabus. This definition is not the part of your syllabus. But I just want to focus on the word that the banker accept your deposit for investment and lending. Yeah. And out of that deposits, bank also earn profit by investing your money somewhere else. And that bank's fund, whatever total deposit is there in the hand of bank and whatever the owner's capital employed by the bank, that total fund is engaged somewhere. That engagement, use of that fund is known as the employment of bank's fund. Again, I am repeating, the total deposit given by the customer, the loan taken by the banks from the other banks or the other institutions, the share capital or the owner's fund employed by the owners in the banks. Total of all these things means you can say the total of internal sources of money plus the external sources of money is equal to the total fund of any bank. Are you able to understood? I am repeating again. Internal sources of money plus the external sources of money. Total of these two things will be the total amount in the hands of bank. This total amount is used by a bank somewhere. It may be for investment purpose, it may be for purchasing assets for bank, it may be for paying the salary to the employees. This all the funds are engaged somewhere. That is known as the employment of banks fund. I hope it is clear. Okay. Now what we have to learn in this chapter, the first topic is the principles of lending. As we discussed in the definition part of the bank, that bank accept the deposit from the public for the purpose of lending and investing. So the lending is the main, or you can say the principal or the traditional activity of any bank. So at the time of lending, what are the rules and regulations should be the banker kept in mind? That rules and regulation which are for the beneficial of the bank is known as the principles of banking. At the time of lending the fund to the customers, banker has to follow these principles. These principles are not for the benefit of customer. These principles meant for the benefit of bank. The second, and again this is the very important topic from the examination point of view also, principles of lending. The next is the factor affecting to employments of bank's fund. As just now we discussed that banker is going to invest your money. The banker may lend the money, the banker may invest in the shares of the other companies or anything else. So what are the factors that affect at the time of employment of bank's fund? The factor may be the internal factor, the factors may be the external factors. External factors may very common thing is the government policy. Yes, the government policy may change at any time, and as a banker survive in that economy, those the banker has to follow the rules and regulation given by the government. And nowadays you can see the situation of COVID-19, the pandemic situation, the situation that economic adversely affected. Now this external factor affect the employment of banks fund also. Yes, the major effect is on the banks. The major decision is taken by the RBI, and all the banks has to follow the decision taken by the governor. So we have to learn these factors in this chapter. The next is the forms of advances. Forms of advances means you can say the types of advances, but but it is something different. Types of advances is bifurcated into two categories: secured advance and unsecured advance. Generally, this question asked in the examination that explain the forms of advances, and the answer of the student is that there are two forms of advances: secured advance and unsecured advance. No, this is not the forms of advances. This is the types of advances: secured advance and unsecured advance. What do you mean by secured advance and unsecured advance? We are going to see in unit number 3. Here, forms of advances means you have to explain about the cash credit, overdraft facility, which you are going to avail from the bank, and the loan facility which you are going to avail from the bank. So especially you have to explain these 3 points here: cash credit, overdraft and loan. You may be very familiar with the words overdraft and loan. I think you are not so much familiar with the word of cash credit. Okay, now just a definition part we are going to discuss here. What do you mean by overdraft? We all are familiar with the overdraft. If the person is having the current account and the person withdrawal more than the balance available in the current account, that the excess amount is permissible by the bank to withdraw is known as the overdraft, and the person has to pay interest on it. It is not free of cost, but the person has to pay the interest on the excess amount only, not on the total amount. Suppose the balance in the account is 10,000 rupees and the person withdraw the amount of 11,000 rupees, then the person has to pay the amount of interest on 1,000 only, not on the 11,000. This is all about the overdraft facilities. According to the book or according to the norms, the overdraft facility is available only and only for the current account holder. But nowadays, as per the modernization and the customer selected approach, the overdraft facility is also available for the some of the savings account holder. Next is the loan, and we are very much familiar with the word loan. I think no need to explain about the loan. Okay, loan means you are getting the amount from the bank in exchange of some of the security for a particular period of time, and you have to pay the amount with interest. The next is the cash credit facility. That cash credit facility is somehow related with similar with the loan facility, but what is the difference here? As at the time of getting the loan, you get the full amount of loan, and whether you are using that amount or not, you have to pay the interest. But in case of if you are a businessman, so generally businessmen are using the cash credit facilities. In case of cash credit facility, suppose the person want the cash credit of 50,000 rupees, so he will request to the bank, why are you filling the form and all. The bank will open a new account with the cash credit account and will transfer the 50,000 rupees in that account, and the person can withdraw the money as per the need. If the person is not withdrawing the money or not using the money from the account, then no need to pay the interest for that money. Suppose the 50,000 is the balance in the cash credit account and the person withdraws just 30,000 for use, then the person has to pay the interest on 30,000 rupees only, not on the 50,000. But in case of loan, suppose the person has taken a loan of 50,000 rupees. So whether the person is using the fund or not, the person has to pay the interest on rupees 50,000. Okay, so this is a common difference between the cash credit and loan account. And second difference is as soon as you repay the amount of loan to the banker with the interest, your loan account is closed. Suppose a person has taken a loan of 5 lakh rupees and the person repaid the amount with the interest, then the loan account with the name of the person is closed. After 5 to 6 months, if the person wants to take the second loan, then again the person has to do the all the procedure of taking the loan. The person has to apply again and all the procedure will going to be repeat. But in case of cash credit account, it is a permanent account. After completion of 50,000 rupees, if the person wants to ask for more amount or ask to or again want to take the cash credit, in that situation no need to do again all the procedure. Just what the banker has, what the customer has to do, the customer has to inform to the banker. No need to follow the lengthy procedure. So it is very useful for the businessman. Why? Because the businessman require money sometimes in emergency to get the advantages of the opportunity, so no need to follow the lengthy procedure. Sometimes they require the money on a regular basis if they are new in the market, so there is a problem of management of working capital. So these types of all condition happen in the business and the businessman require the money on a regular basis. So it is advisable for those types of person to go for cash credit instead of going for loan account. So in the topic of forms of advances, you have to explain about these three main topics: loan, overdraft, and cash credit facilities. Clear? The next point is importance of margin in advance. Okay, we have discussed that the lending is the main activity or the traditional activity of any bank. The banker has to keep in mind some of the principle at the time of lending of the uh, lending to the customer. We have discussed the forms of advance, or this is also known as the forms of lending. So what do you mean by margin in advance? Margin means the difference between the security you given to the customer, given by you to the banker, and the amount of loan sanctioned by the banker to the customer. Suppose a person has taken a loan of rupees 10 lakh rupees against the security of house, and the market value of that house is 15 lakh rupees. So the difference of 5 lakh rupees is known as the margin. Why the banker keep the margin? So what is the importance to keep the margin at the time of granting the loan? We are going to learn in this chapter. Basic importance, you can note down here that banker wants to cope up with the fluctuation of the property prices. The property prices may fall down in the near future. Suppose the banker grant the loan of equal amount, 10 lakh is equal to 10 lakh, and the future market price is going to be down. The value of the property is going to be down in the market in near future or after 3 4 years. So now the banker has to face the loss. The banker wants to cover these types of loss. Banker wants to cover the uncertainty, you can say. Second thing, banker wants to cover the principal amount with interest in case of the person become the insolvent person or the customer become the insolvent person. So to cover these types of interest and to cover the loss from the uncertainties, it is important to keep the margin at the time of granting the loan to the customers. So this first unit carries the weightage of 30%. Second is the creation of charges. Charges means you are the owner of the property. Suppose you are having a house, but you are not having the authority to sell the house. Why this is so? Some of the rules and regulation make the hurdles to sell the property in the market. And what are the hurdles? The hurdle is known as the charges. This is known as charges which are created by you yourself as a owner. So which are there? So we have to discuss about these four charges that are lien, please, hypothecation, mortgage. Reverse mortgage is a new concept. Yeah? So we have to discuss about these four charges. Okay, you may be familiar with very much familiar with the word mortgage. Mortgage means generally public, we all are using the word mortgage for any type of property. If we have taken a loan and we kept our any asset as a security, so we are using the word as mortgage. Clear? But this is not so. We cannot use mortgage word for all types of property. Then what we have to use? We have also used the word lien. We have to also use the word placed, hypothecation, and mortgage. Yeah, so when we can use the lien word, when we have to use the word pledge and we have to use the word hypothecation. So certain rules are there to use these all words. At the time of this, all four are related with the security against loan. Clear? Whenever we kept our asset as a security against the loan. Suppose first thing, if the asset is immovable property, like we are taking the example of house. Clear? We have taken a loan, we have kept our house as a property, well, as a security. The house is the immovable property. After giving the security of house, what we have to do? We have just to submit the property papers. We are free to use that house also. In that case, we have to use the word mortgage. We can say that we mortgaged our house. Yeah, okay. So you are very much familiar with the word mortgage. That's why I explained the mortgage first. Then hypothecation. Hypothecation word used first condition when the property is a immovable property. No, the property must be the movable property. Here, keep the example in your mind is about the vehicle loan. Yeah, you have taken a loan and you kept your car as a security. The first thing, car is a movable property. Yes. Second thing, the possession of that car is with you, is not with the banker, and you are free to use that car also. At that time, you have to say that you hypothecate your car. Clear? Third, about the pledge. Here D is the silent pronunciation is pledge. Okay. Now, in case of pledge, suppose you have taken a loan and you kept your jewelry as a security. So keep in mind the example of gold loan here. Yeah, you kept your jewelry as a security. In that time, jewelry is the movable property. Second thing, the possession of that property is with the banker, not with the you. Whenever you have taken a gold loan, you are not free to use that your jewelries. The possession of that jewelries are with the banker till the end of till the payment of loan amount with the interest. So you have to use the word pledge, that you placed your jewelries. And lien is the right of the creditor to take the possession of any property till the repayment of that amount with interest. Clear? Lien is the right. Lien is a type of charges, but it is not a security. Lien is about the right of a creditor. Suppose a person has given 10 lakh rupees to Mr. B, and the Mr. B is not ready to pay the amount. So Mr. A is having the right to take the possession of any property which is registered with the name of Mr. B. So what are the types of liens? There are two types of lien: general lien and special lien. We are going to discuss all these things in detail in our chapter number 2. So just keep in mind two things, that whenever you are deciding whether to use the word place, hypothecation and mortgage, you have to focus on two things. First thing, whether the property is movable or immovable. Second thing, whether the possession is with you or with the banker. Clear? If the property is immovable property, in that condition mortgage is only the word. If the property is immovable property, then you have to towards the mortgage. But if the property is a movable property, then you have to choose between these two, place and hypothecation. So how to decide when to use place and when to use hypothecation? If the property possession is with the banker, then you have to use the word place. If the property possession is with you as a customer and you are using the property, then you have to use the word hypothecation. Clear? Now, what about the reverse mortgage? Reverse mortgage is a scheme which is helpful for the old person, especially started for the senior citizens. After the retirement or after or in the case of old age, the person is not having any source of income. But if the person is having any property, suppose example house is there, the person can keep the house as a security to the banker, and the banker will provide the income to the person on a regular basis. So this is something different. Clear? Here this scheme is useful only and only for the senior citizens. So that's why this is opposite to the mortgage. Here in case of mortgage, as soon as you are going to pay the amount, loan amount with interest, you become the owner. Here, as soon as the bank pay the amount to you, the banker becomes the owner. So this is opposite to the mortgage. That's why it is known as the reverse mortgage. Okay. Now, what is the rights of placer and placee? Here, placer and placee are the two parties of the pledge, and we have to discuss about the rights of placer and placee. The third is the secured and unsecured advances. Yeah. Okay. I just want to focus on the meaning of placer and placee. This is the typing mistake in the definition and the spelling of placee. There should be double e in the last. Rights of placer and placee. Pledge. Clear? Because if single E is there, it is known as pledge, and pledge is not any party. Clear? The pledge is a charge. So here it should be pledgee. Pledgee. The rights of placer and pledgee. The placer means the customer and pledgee means banker. At the time of pledge, which are the rights of a banker and which are the rights of a customer, we are going to discuss in this chapter. The weightage of this unit is 20%. The next unit is the secured and unsecured advances. The meaning is very clear from the name itself. Secured advances means whenever you have taken a loan from the bank and you kept your asset as a security, so that type of advance is known as the secured advance. Second is the unsecured advance. Whenever you have taken a loan from the bank without giving any security on your credit worthiness, on your reputation, at that time it is known as the unsecured advance. What we have to discuss in this chapter, we have to discuss the meaning of the secured advance and unsecured advance. Then we have to discuss the risk factor of unsecured advance. Why the risk factor we have to discuss? Because in the unsecured advance, the banker grant you the loan without the security of any property. So the risk is there. risk is very high as compared to the secured advance, because in case of secured advance, if the customer become insolvent, so the banker is having the option to cover the loan amount with interest from the sale or proceed of the property which is kept as a security. But in case of unsecured advance, to cover the amount is a uh, somehow uncertain process. The amount may recover, the amount may not recover also. So the risk factor is there. Okay, now as we discussed in the definition of secured advance, that we have taken a loan in exchange of security by keeping the asset as a security. So some of the example of asset as a security we have to learn in this chapter. The example of life insurance policy. If a person is having the life insurance policy, the person is able to take a loan against the security of life insurance policy. uh, Focus here, the person is not able to take the loan against the security of general insurance policy. This option is available only and only for the life insurance policy, because the life insurance policy is the policy for a longer time period, plus compared to the generally it is for high amount. Second, and one more thing here, in life insurance policy, there is a certainty of payment, that the insurance company is going to pay you on death or on maturity, whichever is earlier, means the payment is certain. So you are able to get the loan on the security of life insurance policy, but not on the general insurance policy. Second, on the security of real estate. If the person is the owner of any real estate, so the person can take the loan against the security of that real estate. Next is the bank deposit receipt. Bank deposit receipt means what? You have deposited your amount with bank, and the receipt is the proof of the deposit. You can commonly familiar with the FD deposit. Whenever you start a FD account, the banker will give you a certain receipt. That receipt is known as the bank deposit receipt. Okay, next is about the book debts. Book debts means data. You are very familiar with the debtors, asset side. The debtors are reported return. Suppose a person is running a company, on the asset side, balance sheet shows the debtor of 1 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees, and the person wants a loan of 2 lakh rupees. The person is able to take the loan on the security of that book debts. What are the rules and regulations we are going to discuss in this chapter. Next is the supply of bills, or it is also known as the supply bills. Off should not be there. This should be supply bills. Okay, the supply bills are the bills which is issued by a supplier. Here, supplier is someone, some person, or the some government or the semi-government body. That body is having the license to supply a particular, you can say the prohibited goods, or you can say some important goods here. At that time, the supply bill is the proof of the supply of that material to the parties. On the security of that supply bill, the person is able to take the loan. Suppose I purchased the goods of 10 lakh rupees from the XYZ company. I'm not received the good yet, but I am having the supply bill. That bill is the proof that I purchased the goods, and I am the owner of that goods of rupees 10 lakh rupees. Yet I didn't receive the physical possession. Yet I am having the proof of that ownership. So on the proof of ownership, I am able to take the loan from the bank. Next is the treasury and godown receipt. If certain goods are there in my godown and I am the owner of that particular goods, so I am having the godown receipt. That godown receipt is the proof that the particular amount of goods is left in my godown. Yeah. So on the basis of that godown receipt, I am eligible to take the loan. Suppose there are goods of rupees 5 lakh rupees in my godown. So on the basis of that proof that I am having the goods, that I am eligible to take the loan on the security of that godown receipt. Warehouse receipt is similar with the godown receipt. Next, precautions against the lending of security. This is very important point. Precautions against lending against security. Off should not be there. Against security. So as a banker, if the banker granting you loan in the security of life insurance policy, real estates, bank deposit receipt, book debt, supply bills, treasury and godown receipts, warehouse receipt, at the time of lending you, what are the precautions a banker should take? That we have to learn in this chapter. And this question is again very IMP from the examination point of view. This chapter carries the weightage of 30%. The fourth unit is guarantee. In this definition, in this unit, what we have to learn? We have to learn about the guarantee. So what do you mean by guarantee? Here guarantee means not your guarantee and warranty. Please don't write the meaning of that guarantee. Sometimes question asked in examination that what do you mean by guarantee? So the reply of the student is, answer of the student is that oh, the guarantee, warranty and all. Please, that is not that type of guarantee. Here guarantee means the promise given by the third party about the assurance of payment. Suppose a person wants the loan of rupees 50 lakh rupees, and the person is not having any property to kept as a security. So what the person can do? The person can give the give the guarantee of any person to the bank. The third party is known as the guarantor. Clear? On the basis of that promise, the banker is agreed to pay you the amount. Clear? In case of insolvency of the customer, what the banker will do? Banker will recover the amount from the guarantor. Clear? The banker is the creditor, the customer is the principal debtor, and the guarantor is the secondary debtor. Three parties are there. Which are they? Creditor, who is the creditor? Banker. Debtor, who is the debtor? Customer. Or you can say the principal debtor. And the secondary debtor is guarantor. Clear? Suppose the person become insolvent and the guarantor pays the amount in behalf of that person. So now the guarantor is also having the right to recover the amount from the principal debtor. So in this chapter, what we have to learn? We have to learn about the definition. Then we have to learn about the importance of that guarantee in banking business. Then we have to learn about the rights of surety. Here surety means the guarantor. Here we have to discuss the rights, the authority of the guarantor. If a person is ready to provide the promise to the banker in behalf of someone, so of course the person is having some of the rights. So which are they, we are going to discuss in this chapter. Then we have to discuss about the banker's duty and precautions. At the time whenever banker is ready to grant you unsecured loan, yes, of course you are not having any security and you are given promise of third party as a security, and whenever banker is ready to grant you these types of loan, then what are the duties a banker has to perform, and what the precaution banker should be kept at the time of granting you the loan? That duties and precautions we have to learn in this chapter. And the last topic for this unit is ends of guarantee. Ends of guarantee means when the guarantor is having the right to take back the promise. What are the conditions when the guarantor can take back the promise? There may be end of guarantee. It is not a continuous process. The guarantee is for a particular time period, is for a particular transaction. Then we have to discuss the what are the condition. In that condition the guarantee may come to the end. So this chapter, this unit carries the weightage of 20%. Some of the list of the reference book given here. In all that, the fifth one, Banking Law and Practice, P. N. Barsney, and the first one, Banking Law and Practice in India, M. L. Tanan, is the best book according to my opinion. Okay, now as we discussed, four units are there, carries the weightage of 30%, 20%, 30%, 20% total, 100%. For this subject, no book is available in the market. What you have to do, I will give you the material and you have to rely on my material. And one more important thing here, you will find the question from the examination directly from the syllabus, topic of the syllabus. Suppose first topic is the principle of lending, so the same topic will be there in question of a paper. So key explain the principle of lending. Here you may find the rights of surety. The same question is there in the paper. Explain the rights of surety or short note on rights of surety, the precautions against the lending of security. The same some of these topics are there in the syllabus that similarly they are asking in the examination, means no sub points are there that you have to focus. So what do you want to say, that at least clear with these head points whatever given in the syllabus, clear these topics very clear, because this topic is directly going to ask in examination. The next point is but I want to discuss with you about the paper style. The paper style is same, but you have already aware about the first year. Starting 5 questions are the 10 marks question for 2 marks each. Then next 6-7 marks question will be there. Question number 2. Then question number 3 again 6-7 marks means 13 and 13. And lastly, you will find the short notes of 12 or 14 marks. Clear? Sometimes it may be for 12 marks, sometimes it may be for 14 marks. Depends on the question marks of question number 3, 2 and 3. If the question number 2 is for 12 and 12, then in the last we will find for 14 marks. And if the question number 2 and 3 is for 13 and 13, then lastly you will find the question for 12 marks. So depends on the marks of question number 2 and 3, but the paper style remains the same. Okay, as we discussed in paper number 1, banking law and practice paper 1, in the last case study will be asked for 8 marks, but in this banking law and practice paper 2, no such types of case study is going to ask you. It is a pure uh, same paper style whatever you face in the first year. Okay, so from the next lecture, we are going to start with the some any chapter from the syllabus. Till then, stay home, stay safe, keep learning, because as I said, no learning can take place without self-learning. Yeah. Please now don't focus on spoon feeding, because now you are not a kids. We will provide you all the materials, but this is your duty, that you are at home and you have to learn. Yeah. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.